Enter Habs After Dark with Recliner Sports.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Habs After Dark. My name is Devin, and this is another episode of everybody's favorite post-game Montreal Canadiens show, Habs After Dark. We are on the road. We are not in Halifax. We are actually in beautiful New Waterford, Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. We are coming to you live from New Waterford, Nova Scotia. So welcome to the show, boys and girls. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for joining us over on TikTok. I see you over there. Like I said, hit that button, guys. Hit that screen. Send us some likes, and that will certainly help us get more people. We are live on both TikTok and YouTube. For those of you on YouTube, you can get in the comment section and you can fire away with your questions. I am from Halifax, Mateo. Not from there, but I live there. So if you're over on TikTok, feel free to fire away with your questions, comments, and whatever. We will certainly respond. And if you're over here on YouTube, you can certainly pose your questions here as well. Welcome, RDP. Thank you for the thumbs up. If you have not yet subscribed to the show, boys and girls, please do so. There's a button down below that says subscribe. And we are trying to grow the Recliner Sports community here on YouTube. We are trying to get to 500 subscribers. And we're nearly at 300. We have a little bit of a ways to go, but we can certainly do it with your assistance. So that would be awesome. If you're over there on TikTok, you can like, share, and follow. You follow by tapping on the logo right there in the top left-hand corner. We're actually doing quite a bit better as far as followers on TikTok. We've been doing TikTok for quite some time. And so we're closer to 5,500 followers on TikTok. And things are going well over there. But again, we're trying to grow our channel here on YouTube. And it would be awesome if you guys would help us out with that. Anyways, guys, what did we think of the game? A 1-0 loss to the Calgary Flames. Not a great first couple of periods. Certainly the first period was a little bit disappointing. However, I think they played quite a bit better, certainly in the third period. It seemed like it would only be a matter of time before they tied the game up. Unfortunately, the clock ran out before they were able to. Massive pressure on the Calgary Flames in the last few minutes there. But unfortunately, the clock ran out before they could get one past Dustin Wolf, who played spectacular game tonight. He was certainly the best player for the Calgary Flames tonight, and I thought he was a bit of a difference maker for the Flames. Habman says, Habs, no scoring. Yes, it was a 1-0 game tonight, Habman. The Canadiens were not able to get the puck past Dustin Wolf, the rookie goaltender for the Calgary Flames. So, I thought it was good goaltending on both ends, Matt. I agree with that. If you're here on YouTube, guys, please hit the thumbs up button down below. If you're over on YouTube, tap the screen, guys. See if we can get some more people here into the live. So we're going to talk about the game, guys. We're going to go through the scoreboard, and we'll go through the A team. But in the meantime, if you have questions, comments, or anything about what I'm saying or about the game in general, or even about hockey and the NHL in general, the trade deadline, of course, yesterday, I'm sure that you might have some comments about that, whether you have another favorite team or otherwise. Feel free to fire away. We'll do our best to respond to the questions. My main takeaway from the game tonight was, I guess there's a couple. What's up, Billy D? A couple takeaways from the game tonight. One was I was interested, three, I guess. One, I was interested to see how the team would respond to the vote of confidence that the general manager showed them on Friday by not making any moves and not really disturbing the current roster, right? Giving them an opportunity to prove what they're capable of doing with the current group. And I thought it would be interesting to see how they would come out and perform under those circumstances. There's been a lot made in the media about the fact that Nick Suzuki and Kent Hughes met during or at least spoke anyway, during the Four Nations face-off. And that at that time, Nick Suzuki kind of asked about whether or not they could keep the team together. And the response from Kent Hughes was, well, go out and prove it to me, right? Go out and win some games and see, and we'll see what we can do. And of course, the Canadiens went out and won 5 of 6 and took 11 of 12 points. And Nick Suzuki had 14 points in 5 games, I believe, following that. So a lot of people are making a big deal out of the fact that the Canadiens didn't make any moves. But that, at least that promise, at least in part, played a role in why the Montreal Canadiens did or didn't do what they did during um, the trade period. So Matt says, glad they didn't make any moves. Don't think we need draft picks. Yeah, again, I'm glad they didn't make any moves either. Obviously, I think they would have made the right move if the right move presented itself. But I think there's a lot of teams, and I think we saw it this year. There's a lot of teams that go out in the trade deadline and feel like they have to make a trade, right? That they're compelled to make a trade. That they have no choice but to make a trade. And there's a lot of trades out there, mate. Like there's teams picking up players who just are not needle movers. They're not guys who are going to make any type of difference. And it's one of the things I really like about Kent Hughes is he doesn't really ever feel cornered. He never feels pushed to do something that that he doesn't really want to do. That's not part of the plan. And I'm really happy with that. So I'm really happy with that. Playing meaningful games in March. What more do you want? Billy D says, yeah, I agree. This is what they wanted to be doing at this time of year. They wanted to be playing meaningful games, and the reason they want to play meaningful games is not so much about making the playoffs as much as it is about their ability or the experience they're gaining from playing in these games, right? Learning what it feels like and what it looks like to play in important games, games that matter this close to the playoffs, right? Again, if they make the playoffs, great. If they don't, doesn't really matter. It's not really the goal of this team. The goal was to give them that experience, and I think that's one of the other takeaways from the trade deadline is that Kent Hughes chose the culture of the team and the family. The family close togetherness of this group and this team over making any major changes, right? Like I think what the changes would have looked like more than likely would have been more about selling than they would have been about buying. It would have looked like getting rid of guys like Armia. It would have looked like getting rid of guys like Dvorak and Savard and possibly even Jake Evans. And what that would have meant, frankly, for the team would have been probably a better draft pick, right? If they, I think they probably would have looked at getting rid of some of those guys and in the short term diminishing or weakening the team at the NHL level, and probably dropping in the standings a little bit to the point where they probably would have picked in the top 10. They probably would have picked maybe even in the top 7 or 8, and that certainly would have been to the benefit or the advantage of the rebuild. And instead, they chose to stick with the team that they have, which means that the team stays stronger a little bit in the short term. They didn't go out and bring anybody in. I don't think they're at the point now to do that. And I think that it was essentially a decision made to give these guys the opportunity to prove what they can do and to give them a chance to play with the group that they currently have. And I think that's a big thing in a lot of ways, because it sends a message to the teams on the Canadiens. It sends a message about the culture of the team. It sends a message about the relationship between management and the players. Kent Hughes keeps a promise. It also sends a message to other players in the league, right? That Kent Hughes is a guy that'll stand up for his players. A lot of these things, right? So I think it all in all, I think it's a positive. And I'm not disappointed at all with the lack of moves that were made at the trade deadline. Billy D, God's country. Who's in God's country? I'm in God's country. Who are we talking about? Who's in God's country? You're talking about Cape Breton, Billy D? Well, that's where I am. So just got back from New York City. Watched my boys pound the Rangers. Okay, nice. Nice, Dana. Your team looks pretty good this year. Out of nowhere, Dana is a Washington Capitals fan who I've known for quite some time, and she's a big fan of the Washington Capitals. So she is enjoying this season, certainly, when your team plays as well as they are. I think they've only got 14 losses all season. So yeah, Washington Capitals would be really fun to watch right about now. Marc-Antoine, bienvenue. Est-ce que les Canadiens auraient dû trade pour Rantanen? Non, pas du tout pour moi, Marc-Antoine. Rantanen, c'est pas un joueur pour les Canadiens. C'est un joueur de 12 millions de dollars. Alors, pour les Canadiens, c'est pas dans leur plan d'avoir des joueurs de 12 millions de dollars à cette phase de la reconstruction. Je pense que c'est difficile à gagner dans la LNH maintenant avec des joueurs qui gagnent une salaire comme ça. Et c'est surtout difficile à gagner si vous avez 2 ou 3 joueurs qui gagnent un salaire comme ça. Alors, moi, je ne suis pas intéressé d'avoir un joueur comme ça. C'est certain que Rantanen, c'est un excellent joueur, mais à ce prix, c'est beaucoup trop, c'est trop coûteux pour moi. Alors, je suis content qu'ils n'ont rien fait pour apporter Rantanen à Montréal. C'est pas un joueur qui, c'est quoi le mot pour fit? He doesn't fit in the rebuild. Il n'est pas c'est pas un joueur qui se trouve dans les plans des Canadiens de Montréal. Alors, je suis content qu'ils n'ont pas allé chercher aucun joueur et je suis très content qu'ils n'ont pas allé chercher un joueur comme Mikko Rantanen. What's up, Claude? RDP on the Rock. Yes, that is also God's country. Newfoundland and Cape Breton, right? Where, if I go outside and look really, really, really squint my eyes out the back door from where I am right now, I can see across straight over to Newfoundland. I can't really see that far, but if I had eyes like that, I could certainly see because it's definitely over there. Thanks for tapping that screen over on TikTok, guys. Keep it coming. If you want to come and join the show, you can do so right here. And but if you don't, you can certainly ask your questions over on TikTok. Tap the screen. If you tap the screen, more likes means more people joining the room. So, but if you do want to see the graphics and the video and all that kind of stuff, then you will have to come over to YouTube. But otherwise, you can certainly ask your questions over on TikTok. What is up, EnterTap? Disappointing that we could not secure a point, but credit to Wolf for a great job tonight. I agree. Again, EnterTap always comes in with a great encapsulation of the game. I agree with all of that. Disappointing that they didn't get the point, but I certainly thought there were a lot of positives out of that game. I think they struggled a little bit out of the gate, which maybe was a little bit understanding, and that maybe brings me to my second takeaway from the game was, how do you respond to the adversity of losing a couple of your guys? Obviously, they're already dealing with the loss of Kirby Dach on the second line, and Owen Beck, we've talked about it to death a little bit about whether or not he's the right man for that job. But on top of that, that was compounded tonight by the fact that Patrick Laine wasn't able to play because he was out with the flu, and so that second line all of a sudden is completely decimated. And they didn't really, Michael Pezzetta comes into the lineup. Josh Anderson jumps up to the second line. Pezzetta plays on the third line. So you go into the game with your lines all over the place, right? And we certainly have seen in the past from this team that they kind of struggle a little bit with, with change. They kind of struggle a little bit when the lines are not, perfectly in order. Heineman goes out of the lineup for a little bit of while. Even though he was only playing on the fourth line, that just that change in the lineup kind of impacts the team a little bit. And how moving guys out of the right chair, can affect them. So they struggled a little bit in the first period. Then of course Heineman takes a shot off the ear hole and goes off the ice bleeding out of his ear. He fortunately was able to come back, but for a period there, they're really struggling to get their guys together, right? So. They should give his A to Jake Evans. They should give whose A to Jake Evans. I think King Dib is here to start a fight, so we're just going to ignore King Dib, guys, over on TikTok. Some fans losing their minds over lack of moves to get a 2C. Very frustrating. It is Billy D, but I mean, if there's one thing that I've learned is that there are different levels of fans, right? There's fans that sort of, are fans and they cheer with their heart and they cheer with their emotions, but they don't really follow the team as closely as some other fans do, and they perhaps don't understand exactly what a rebuild means and what the team's plan is and what they're trying to do, and so sometimes the moves that the Canadiens make or don't make might seem frustrating to those people, right? And they're frustrated because they see a team that could use a player in that second line center role, and they would be right to say that. But on the other hand, they don't understand what the team is trying to do long term, and that trading prospects or draft picks to fill that role at this stage of the rebuild isn't necessarily in the works. There you go. It's me, Mike. Actually, I'll do you one better. I'm going to grab myself a beer here. Give me a second. Sorry, guys. We got some good local Nova Scotia beer. We're buying Canadian. We're buying local. I agree. It is frustrating, Billy D. And one of the things, like I said, that I've learned is that again, there's different levels of fans. And it applies to the Canadiens just as much, if not more so, than everybody else, right? There's a lot of fans out there that think that this is what the team's trying to do, right? And they don't understand what the plan is for the Montreal Canadiens. So. Très bon français, as always. Merci beaucoup, Marc-Antoine. J'essaie de faire mon mieux. Nicolas Bouchard, salut. J'ai eu l'impression qu'on a vécu la même chose que bien des équipes avec Price. Les Flames ont été capables de compter un but et après le goaler a fait le job. Très peu divertissant pour CGR. CGR, c'est Calgary, je pense. Oui, c'est sûr. C'était un match que les Canadiens ont joué beaucoup de fois avec Carey Price. Ils ont joué contre des meilleures équipes et puis ont gagné le match à cause de Carey Price. Et peut-être c'était pas le reste de l'équipe n'ont pas fait leur meilleur, mais c'est Carey Price qui a été mieux et a arrêté l'autre équipe. Alors, moi, j'ai trouvé ce match un peu divertissant, certainement à la fin de la match, quand les Canadiens ont mis la pression sur les Flames. Mais c'est sûr que Dustin Wolf était le meilleur joueur sur la glace ce soir. J'ai fait un commentaire sur Blue Sky ce soir. J'ai dit que c'était un match ce soir où les meilleurs joueurs pour chaque équipe étaient des joueurs qui étaient trop petits pour jouer dans la LNH. Alors, c'est Lane Hudson qui était le meilleur joueur pour le Canadien ce soir. Tout le monde a dit que lui était trop petit pour jouer dans la LNH. Et Dustin Wolf aussi, c'était un joueur qui était trop petit pour jouer gardien dans la LNH. Alors, j'ai trouvé ça intéressant ce soir. Tony B. Beck looked NHL ready tonight. I wonder if that correlated with Laine out. Yeah, Beck looked okay tonight. I thought he was good while he was on the ice. He didn't get a ton of ice time. Yeah, I'm drinking ultra lights from a brewery called Good Robot in Halifax. The Flames played a pretty good defensive game tonight, Shimarat. So that's all good. The Flames. I'll say this about the Flames tonight: they have a much better defensive game than the Edmonton Oilers do. I can certainly say that. I'll tell you that for nothing. Labatt Maximum Ice 7.1, old school. The problem is people like to pick on a player or two and use that as a scapegoat. This is what the team is at this stage, and they are learning to play in pressure situations. Yeah, I mean, that's another problem, I think, Entertap. I mean, we've discussed that before. I've used the term scapegoat. I've used the term whipping boy. And I think there's certain guys who play that role on the Montreal Canadiens. There's always guys who are scapegoats or whipping boys on the Canadiens. And the problem is if you're looking for guys to make mistakes in hockey, you're going to see it because everybody makes mistakes. And so if you don't like Mike Matheson and you're watching the game and every time he makes a mistake it sticks out in your head and you notice it, then you're going to come out of that game thinking, well, Mike Matheson, makes lots of mistakes. And the reality is players make mistakes, right? And so if you go in with a preconceived notion, the confirmation bias will be that you don't think that Mike Matheson's a very good hockey player, or you don't think that Kirby Dach's a very good hockey player. Now, don't get me wrong, there are times where those guys don't play well. And Kirby Dach, I'm not going to suggest for a minute that he's had a good season or had a good season before he got hurt. He hasn't. But again, these certain fans get an idea about these players, and then it's almost like it's an obsession to them. They can't let it go, right? It's everything that player does all of a sudden becomes the worst thing in the world, right? And the easiest way to check whether somebody is using another player as a scapegoat or a whipping boy is to look at the accuracy of their criticism, right? Is their criticism fair? Is it accurate? Does it hold up to reality, right? And so, again, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Kirby Dach had a good year, or that he's the criticism of him is unwarranted. But what I would say is that the suggestion that he shouldn't play for the Montreal Canadiens ever again, and that he is a terrible hockey player, I think that that's unfair and that's wrong, because we've seen in the past he's been a very good hockey player for the Montreal Canadiens, which is why the Canadiens are giving him the opportunity, or have given him such a long leash to get there. So so I scapegoating and again, there's a lot of fans out there who cheer with their heart, and that's part of being a fan. I get that. I'm not criticizing people for being that way. Certainly, feel free to be that way. But again, sometimes those fans don't understand the bigger picture and what the team's trying to do. So that's why those fans are the ones who are sort of upset that the Canadiens didn't go out and do certain types of moves at the trade deadline, that they feel, those fans also feel like they know more than, Kent Hughes, for example, right? The thing with me is, I do a lot of research and I follow the Canadiens really closely. I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of, I follow it really, really closely. So generally I feel like I'm well informed, but I also don't think I know more than Kent Hughes. Like, I often preface most of my comments with, the management knows more about this than I do. And so I kind of trust what they do and what their decision is. The problem is that these fans who cheer mainly with their heart also believe that they know more than management does, and they don't really concede the fact that their opinions might not carry the same level of weight as the general manager of the Montreal Canadiens, and somehow they think that their opinion on whether or not the Canadiens should do this, that, or the other thing is greater than the opinion of Jeff Gorton's or Kent Hughes or Martin St. Louis, right? These are the same people who called for Marty St. Louis to be fired in November and so on. So anyways, enough about that. Let's move on, guys. Like I said, if you're over on TikTok, guys, tap that screen. Let's see if we can get some more people out there. The more likes means more followers. If you want to follow us, you can tap there. It also means more people will join the room. If you have a question, feel free to post it on TikTok, or you can go there and come over and join us on YouTube. If you're over here on YouTube, get in the comment section and fire away. En français ou en anglais, in English or in French, we'll take it all, guys. Nicolas Bouchard, 100% d'accord. Ce que je voulais dire, c'est que si Calgary continue de jouer comme ça va leur faire des matchs défensifs au max et peu divertissants pour leurs supporters. C'est sûr, mais je pense que c'est un style de match, c'est un style de jouer qu'ils doivent jouer, parce que pour eux, ils n'ont pas... Leurs meilleurs joueurs sont sur le côté défensif de leur équipe. Am I from Montreal, Mark? I grew up in Montreal, but I don't live in Montreal anymore. Pour les Flames, leurs meilleurs joueurs, leurs strengths, c'est quoi strengths? Leur fort, la partie forte de leur équipe, c'est le côté défensif. Alors, ça se peut que c'est un peu moins divertissant pour leurs supporters, mais c'est comme ça. Yeah, I mean, it is, Nicholas, and it's, I mean, everybody gets caught up in it, and I mean, the reality is like I said, if you believe that somebody, thank you, Mark, if you believe that somebody is, sucks, and everyone's going to make a mistake. So when that person you think sucks makes a mistake, then you automatically say, "Oh well, he made another mistake." So you feel offended, Wesh? How come? I like Dach, but let's be real, injury prone. I don't think we're using the term injury prone correctly, quite frankly. I think he's had a lot of injuries, but I don't think that his injuries are an indication that he's more prone to injuries. I don't, again, I would have liked Hughes to get some help, not necessary second line center. Okay, well, that's fine. if you would like him to do that, but you also have to recognize that, that doesn't really fit within the plan that they have, and that there's a very logical and rational explanation as to why they didn't make that move, right? And again, so that's the problem with some fans, is that they, regardless of the explanation and regardless of the very clear and concise words that are being used to explain why things happen the way they are, they still believe that their view on the way things should happen, outweigh or are more valuable than that of the general manager, right? So here we have a situation where, we've heard the entire story, and we talked about it already on the show, but Suzuki and Hughes talking, and Suzuki asking to have the team kept together, and Hughes being skeptical and telling him, well, go out and prove it to me and see what you can do. And then the team goes out and wins 5 out of 6, right? Gets 11 out of 12 points. And so, Hughes feels compelled to keep his promise that he made to his captain because, of the way he responded to that challenge. And so the reason they didn't add that player is in part because of that, in part because they're rebuilding, in part because, frankly, I think they probably would have preferred to move on, right? To move on from guys like Armia and Dvorak and some of those other guys, and to sort of move on from them. And he didn't do that. So again, they rewarded the players by letting them stay together and prove what they can do and continue to play meaningful games. Habs only got 6 shots after 35 or 40 minutes. Habs only got 6 shots after 35. Wake up too late. Yeah, it was a slow start. PLW, for sure. Absolutely. My CF stream don't work. Okay, I don't know what that means. Welcome to the show, guys. If you're over on TikTok, keep firing away with your questions. If you want to come join the show, you can join us right there. Come on over here. You can see the graphics and whatever. We're going to get to our scoreboard here in a second, guys. If you're over here on YouTube, please subscribe. The button is down below. We're trying to get to 500 followers. We're only at 300. We're trying to get more followers. We're trying to get big time like Coach Frenchie and get lots of followers on here. So if you can help us out, that would be awesome. What's up, Bruno? I see you over there. NS Daddy-O, Nando, Mountain Boy, Haley, what's up? Sick of Slav trashing, trade him, and when he tears it up elsewhere, same fans will be crapping on management for trading him. Yeah, again, another characteristic of those fans would be a short memory, right? They only remember the bad things. They don't remember the good things. Like, again, nobody remembers when Kirby Dach was the best player on the Montreal Canadiens for the last, quarter of the 22-23 season, and then went into the 23-24 season as the best player in training camp. He was really, really good, and the conversation being had at that time was whether or not he should be taking over the number 1 centerman job from Nick Suzuki, right? That was the conversation that was being had at that time, but nobody remembers that, right? And again, I'm not for a minute suggesting that he hasn't struggled this year. He certainly has, and he had a hard time coming back from his knee injury, and there's no doubt about that. But again, people forget. People think that trash Slavkovsky, but they don't remember that he's still only 20 years old. He's still the youngest player on the team. He's still got a long way to go. He scored 50 points last year. He's working on things. He's going to get better. So, it is what it is, right? Still, wherever you stand in the process, if you are there in the mix, at least don't travel with minimum staff and such critical trip out west. Well, there's a reason why they're doing that as well, PLW, right? I really think Kirby Dach, that's the worst. I really like Kirby Dach, that's the worst. I'm not sure what you mean there, Wesh. I like Kirby Dach too. But again, if he doesn't perform, he's not going to be a part of this team. But the point of it is that he's going to get a chance, and the reason he's going to get a chance is that he's earned that chance, right? He earned that chance by the way he played previously, and he earned that chance because he has a contract that doesn't expire until the end of next year. So presuming he can recover from this injury, which they're saying he should be able to, and come to camp next year, he'll get an opportunity to take on whatever role he can earn at training camp. If that's the second centerman position, then fine. If it's a winger position, then that's fine. If it's, like, he's going to get a chance. And the idea that he needs to be traded now, or that the Canadiens need to move on from him now, and that he shouldn't get any more chances, or that he's already had enough chances, or any of this other stuff, is just, again, it's just people who don't particularly like Kirby Dach and are thinking more with their hearts than they are with their brains, because they're not really thinking about the bigger picture and understanding what this what the Canadiens are trying to do. Nino, just curious. Thomas Gauthier, Dono, Cam, Nando, Jacob, what's up? Welcome, welcome, welcome. I think that it was a good idea to keep the team together to evaluate what you have in hand. Keep Kapanen and Reinbacher, Mailloux and company in Laval, and put what the Canadiens' assets can do in important games. I agree, and that's the reason why they're traveling with, as PLW says it, not enough staff, right? Because the players in Laval are also playing meaningful games, and that is a valuable experience for them down there as well, right? So that is why, I mean, Marty St. Louis said those exact words. If you listen to him in his pregame interview, he said that they don't want to deplete the Laval roster. That is why they're traveling with just the one extra forward and no extra defense, right? And so, now that Laine is out, and, I don't know whether, he'll be back in time for the next game, they may have to bring somebody up. But that's why they're traveling a little bit short-staffed, right? So they don't want to take somebody out of Laval. Certainly they don't want to bring somebody out of Laval just to sit in the press box. That's why they're doing what they're doing. Doc never won his spot. Let him come back as a 3C or W. Well, again, I don't think you understand what winning your spot means, PLW. If he goes to camp and he plays good enough to be the second-line center, then why not let him come back as the second-line center? If he comes back and is terrible, then he doesn't play anywhere. Like, what do you mean? I don't get what you mean. I didn't say he won his spot. I said he won a chance to earn a spot. And he did certainly win a chance, or earn a chance to win his spot. He was the best player on the Montreal Canadiens for a quarter of a season. And again, this is what I talk about when I talk about scapegoats and when I talk about people who have whipping boys. It's when your criticism doesn't match reality, right? Because if you ignore, the reality of the situation, then it tells me that you're looking for a reason to not like the player. Yeah, I agree. He came off a big injury, and I'm not sure that his injury was really the problem for him anymore. I think it was more about the mental side of things. What's up, Zaddy? I support Jenna's side, Zaddy. Yeah, I mean, injuries have played a role in it, but I think there's also a big component of it being mental, right? It's not easy to play in Montreal, right? And when you're struggling, when you're struggling, it's tough, right? You're going to get asked about it by the media, some of which have more couth than others, and you're going to have to face the music day in and day out. And there were times this year when Kirby Dach played okay, but again, I'm not going to pretend that he's had a good year. He hasn't overall, but again, he's definitely earned an opportunity to see what he can do at a training camp next year. He's earned the opportunity to get a chance with this team. And that's, and the fact is that the team recognizes that. I'm not saying something outrageous or crazy here. I'm saying, essentially the exact same thing that Kent Hughes would tell you if he were sitting here in my place, right? This is why the Canadiens have given him a long leash, is because they do see what he's capable of, and they do see his potential, and they want to give him every opportunity to live up to that potential. And if he does, great. And if he doesn't, then they'll move on from him. But again, there's no need to precipitate moving on from him at this point, right? Billy D, I'm not sure Doc was ever at 100% this year. I think physically he was, Billy D, to be honest with you. I think his knee was fine. Again, I don't know what the long-term impact of that knee injury was. I don't think he was in pain from his injury anymore, I guess is what I would say. Does having that injury impact your speed? Does it impact your mobility? Does it impact, other aspects of your game? Yeah, maybe it slowed him down a little bit, and he had to adjust to that, and so on and so forth. But I think, for the most part, I think the issues that he was dealing with this year were largely on the mental side of things, right? Getting the feeling back, and we saw it. We saw it a couple times where it started to click, and it just never really got there. And I mean, if you watch him interviewed, like, there were nights where he looked like he was, so frustrated that he was going to break down and cry. And then there were, some games where he played well, where he's an emotional kid, and he's 24 years old, and he's been through a lot, and playing in Montreal comes with a lot of pressure, and it's not easy. And he was answering questions, sometimes unfair questions from the media, and obviously having a fan base that at least a large part of it, or a significant part of it was against him. That's not easy to deal with for a 24-year-old kid. Doc deception is pretty much a consensus from many former NHLers and former NHL. See, this is what I mean by people who treat somebody as a whipping boy. So you're trying to tell me that the consensus of former NHLers and former NHL management is that Doc is a disappointment. So this is what I mean when I talk about people who have a preconceived notion about a player and are willing to say anything. Like, on what basis do you have a consensus? So consensus means more than 50%, right? That's the meaning and the definition of consensus, PLW. So on what basis do you have a consensus of former NHLers and former NHL management people? So if you've done a poll of former NHLers and you've done a poll of former NHL management, and the consensus is that Kirby Dach is I assume you mean deception, you mean disappointment. That's the French word. Déception is for disappointment. I think you don't like Kirby Dach, PLW, which is fine. You don't have to like him, but again, you have to be honest about it, and you're not being honest about it. And that's what I mean by unfair fans, and that's what I mean by fans who don't really have the facts to back up their arguments. They're definitely going to give him a chance, Wes. It doesn't matter what you and I say. It doesn't matter that I believe they're going to, and again, I happen to believe they should give him a chance, but I also know that they will, because they've said they will, right? They've said that they will. Yeah, maybe he should be at the wing, but did he play any better on the wing this year than he did at center? Right? He didn't. He didn't play any better when they moved him to the wing this year than he did when he was at center. And when he played his best hockey at the end of 2022-23, he was playing center. I get that he's not very good on faceoffs, and that's going to be a problem. But we shall see. Enter tap, A-team, Carrier, Matheson, Gallagher, and Dobesh. I think for the first time ever, enter tap. Oh, no, you're not. I was going to say, for the first time ever, you're 0 for 4. You're not. You're not 0 for 4. You're not 0 for 4. Let's get to the scoreboard, guys. If you're over on TikTok, thanks, guys, for joining us. Tap the screen. If you tap the screen, more people will join the live. You can also come and join us here if you want to see the video and the graphics, but you can certainly ask your questions or make your comments over here on TikTok if you like, or you can come over here and get in the comment section, and you can ask us some questions over here. We have 12 thumbs up already, guys. Thank you very much. I see there's 12 people watching, so you can hit the thumbs up, you can hit the subscribe button, all that good stuff. But we are going to go to our scoreboard for tonight, and I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger on the screen to make it easier for everybody to see, and center it, and there it is. Boom, guys. So there's your scoreboard for tonight, guys. Of course, not much to report on the scoreboard. Of course, a 1-0 game. The Canadiens and the Flames played to a 0-0 tie after one period. Joel Farabee scores a goal latter part of the second period to give the Flames a 1-0 lead. And unfortunately, that's all the scoring of the game. Duke Lukum says, Wolf masterclass. Yes, Dustin Wolf was the best player on the ice tonight. Certainly, again, as I said earlier, I found it interesting, and I posted a comment on Blue Sky about the fact that tonight the two best players on the ice, the best players for each team, were both guys who are too small to play in the NHL, right? Everybody Everybody has been saying for a long time that Lane Hudson is too small to play in the NHL. And everybody has been saying that said that Dustin Wolf would be too small to play goalie in the NHL. And yet tonight, on Hockey Night in Canada, in a game between the Flames and the Canadiens, those were the two best players on the ice, right? Wolf was incredible tonight. He played really, really well. And I think that Lane Hudson was pretty special tonight too. Unfortunately, he was on the ice for the goal against, so the game will report that he had a -1 for tonight's game. But I thought he looked really, really, really good. Corsi or Fenwick should be a zero sum. What do you mean, PLW? It's not how the Corsi works. It's not how the Corsi works. The percentage Corsi would be a zero sum for sure, but PLW's A team is Caulfield, Hudson, Dobesh, and Beck. Okay, you're going to have to wait and see if you're right. In any event, Reed Doc management did well to give him a 4-year contract. Again, he's under a good contract. They're not paying him a ton of money, and it's another reason why they'll give him a chance. Wolf beats out Hudson only because of the position. Maybe. Again, I'm not sure who's going to win it. I think that Hudson's probably a better candidate for the Calder Trophy than Wolf. Just because I think what he's doing is more abnormal and more out of the ordinary. It's more spectacular than what Dustin Wolf is doing. Scoring, at nearly a point a game level as a rookie defenseman in the NHL is next to unheard of. Next to unheard of. It was a tough loss, Cole Fitz. It was for sure. So tonight, guys, as far as the scoreboard goes, the shots were 26-24 in favor of the Canadiens. The Corsi was 57-53. The Fenwick was 46-35. The high danger scoring chances 10-6 in favor of Montreal, and the expected goals was 2.33 to 1.53. So, every statistical category favored the Montreal Canadiens with the exception of the one that mattered, which was the scoreboard. And of course, that is a demonstration of what we've been talking about Mr. Wolf and his performance tonight. He certainly was the difference maker for the Flames tonight. Certainly expected goals would say that the Canadiens should have won. They had 2.5 or almost 2.5 expected goals, but they actually scored none. So, that's the scoreboard for tonight, guys. I don't know if you have any comments about it. I'm not a huge believer in all of those advanced statistics. I certainly think that the expected goals is an important number, and I certainly think that the high danger scoring chances is reflective of the opportunities that the teams are getting. The Corsi and the Fenwick is more about possession than it is about scoring opportunities. But again, it's it's worth looking at in any event. So. That's what we got there tonight, guys. Let's get to some more comments. If you're over on TikTok, guys, feel free to post your questions. Ranton and Hinson Robertson. Yes, that is a difficult group to face, I would imagine. It looked like the Habs won about 70% of the face-offs. I can tell you exactly how many they won. The Canadiens tonight won 68.4% of the face-offs, guys. So another category where they did quite well. Wesh, cheers. Like the show for real. Need to practice. I have to practice my crowd pleasing. Well, that's not what I'm really here to do, Wesh. But talent beats out size. Yeah, it does. It does for the most part, Mitchell. If you've got the talent, I think you'll probably make it. Claude says Hudson, Caulfield, Dobesh, and Carrier. We'll get there in a second, guys. Sebastien. That loss hurt like a poorly cooked steak. Okay, I always look at Corsi percentage. Yes. So Corsi basically is your shots towards the net, right? Every time you get a shot towards the net, you get a Corsi. Every time the other team gets a shot towards the net, they get a Corsi. And you add them all up at the end of the game. And so tonight, when they added them all up at the end of the game, the number that they had for Montreal was 57, and the number they had for the Flames was 53. So if you're looking for the percentage, the Corsi percentage tonight was uh, 48% for the Flames and 52% for the Canadiens. So if you want to get into the percentages, that's what they were tonight. Celebrini taking it down. I think that's probably true, Mitchell. I think it's going to be tough for either Dustin Wolf or Lane Hudson to beat out Macklin Celebrini. I think Macklin Celebrini has a lot of things in his favor. He's leading. He'll likely be the leader as far as points per game when the season ends. He's the first overall draft pick. He's a forward, all of those things. And he's certainly deserving. I mean, if he wins, I'm not going to say he wouldn't deserve it. I frankly, personally believe that Lane Hudson deserves it, but that probably also reflects the fact that I watch Lane Hudson a lot more. And I certainly have, probably, if nothing else, a bias of watching him a lot. What's up, Al? Of watching him a lot. I mean, I am a Canadiens fan, and I'm certainly perfectly willing to recognize the biases that come with that. But again, I think, it also has to do with the fact that I get to see him on a regular basis, and I don't watch Macklin Celebrini all that often. What I will say is that Lane Hudson has been the better player in each of the games the Canadiens have played against the San Jose Sharks this year. I will say that. Tap that screen over on TikTok, guys. Let's see if we can get some more people in here. We've got 1,300 likes. Not going to be enough to do it, but if you want to tap that screen, that would be awesome. Corsi Wesh is basically, like I said, it's every time a team takes a shot towards the net, whether it's blocked, whether it misses the net or goes on net, that is a point, Corsi, And so again, every time you get one of those, they add them up at the end of the game, and that's your team's Corsi. The assumption, of course, is that the more shots towards the goal you have, the more you're possessing the puck. So if you have 50 Corsi in the game and the other team only has 30, the presumption is that you are enjoying better possession and certainly more important possession than the other team is. Right, you're possessing the puck in an offensive position, a position where you have opportunities to shoot the puck towards the goal, and that's generally what Corsi is. Fenwick is essentially the same thing, but it does not include blocked shots. So Fenwick is basically Corsi minus blocked shots. The Canadiens got to make the playoffs. They do not got to make the playoffs. No problem, Wesh. The Canadiens not making the playoffs would be like a freezer with no steaks. Okay. Mitchell, Celebrini just wins many puck battles. Yeah, I mean, Celebrini is a fantastic hockey player for his age. The things that he does belie how young he is. He's a guy who does things on the ice that you don't expect from players, at his age, like beyond the scoring, beyond the points. It's a situation where, he plays a very, very mature hockey game. He's good at both ends of the ice. He's a 200-foot player. He wins puck battles. He's got great vision. He's the whole package, right? So in that sense, I'd have no problem with him winning. But I think that Lane Hudson is, equally impressive at the things that he does at his young age, at what is probably a more difficult position. Playing defense in the NHL as a 19, 20-year-old is a lot different than playing forward. And again, I think both of them are doing it really, really, really impressively. A-team, Dobesh, Hudson, Caulfield, and Beck. Okay, we'll see. We're almost there. Yeah, I think Celebrini is certainly the favorite to win it. For, like I said, for the same reasons I just mentioned. He's the number one overall draft pick. He's, offensive production is always going to be sexy, right? And that's what people look for, and they're always going to favor that over everything else. But again, I would have no problem with Celebrini winning it. I think he would be certainly deserving. But I think that Lane Hudson would also be a deserving winner of that award as well. And I think at the end of the day, I think you're going to see it probably come. The three finalists will probably be Celebrini, Hudson and Wolf, and maybe Michkov can bring himself back into the conversation. What's up, Luciano? Welcome, welcome, welcome. I honestly think you're right. Hudson does deserve it as a D-man. Yeah, again, I don't. It's hard to say. I think again, it could go either way. I just think that playing defense in the NHL as a young player is, typically it's harder to adjust to the NHL as a young defenseman than it is as a forward, and it's harder to, your development takes longer as a defenseman, and then even longer as a goaltender. Dustin Wolf, again, the other thing, and I know that this isn't supposed to be a consideration when it comes to Rookie of the Year, and it shouldn't be. But again, Dustin Wolf is, I think, what is he, 23 years old now? And as he's had time in the minors to do so. Again, in a sense, what the what the Canadiens player, or what the Hudson and Matt Celebrini are doing, I'm not going to say they're more spectacular, but it's interesting to look at it from that perspective too, right? I'm just trying to find where is our friend Mr. Wolf here. So Dustin Wolf is, so Dustin Wolf is 23, and he is in his D+5 season, right? So he's in his fifth season since being drafted, whereas Hudson is in his D2 season, and Celebrini is in his D+1 season. So again, I know that those are not things that they'll consider as far as picking the Calder Trophy winner, but I think they are, important to consider. Hudson is that guy. Hudson deserved the Calder. Well, again, I think they both. I would have no problem with either of them. Hudson for Calder. Everyone's tapping on Hudson for Calder. Welcome, welcome, everybody. Welcome. The Canadiens got to get a 12-7 record. Thank you, Wesh. I appreciate it. Two-seamer circle change. I told you, man. Anytime you want, pal. I think you're biting off more than you could chew, PLW. He won AHL Player of the Year. Wolf did. Yes, he did. Yeah, I think he was the Player of the Year last year. Wolf doesn't play like a rookie. No, he doesn't. No, and I mean, I don't think any of those guys do. I don't think that Macklin Celebrini plays like a rookie, and I don't think that Lane Hudson plays like a rookie. There's nothing funny about not making the playoffs. I don't think I said there was anything funny about not making the playoffs, Sebastian. I think Makar won the Calder. How many points did he have? He had I think it was around 60-ish, I want to say. Cale Makar's rookie season, he had stand by. Cale Makar's rookie season, he had 50 points in 57 games. And I believe, yeah. So we had 50 points in 57 games and won the Calder in 2019-2020. So, again, it's not so much about comparing Lane Hudson's numbers to Cale Makar's numbers. He's not competing against Cale Makar. He's competing against Macklin Celebrini, right? So, even if he were to, blow Cale Makar's numbers away, I don't know who would have been the runner-up to Cale Makar the year that he won, right? Like, maybe he didn't have as much competition that year. So, I don't think the comparison is necessarily to make towards Cale Makar. The competition here is Macklin Celebrini. So like Cale Makar, when he won Rookie of the Year, Cale Makar Calder voting. So when he won it, so I'll give you guys, so Quinn Hughes was there as well. So Quinn Hughes, he beat 1,538 voting points, and Quinn Hughes had 1,337. So there was competition there. I suppose. I'll give you a. Uh-oh, did I freeze? I'll give you a hearty thumbs up if you can tell me who finished third trophy race the year that Makar won. So Makar finished first, Quinn Hughes finished second, who finished in third. I am aware, PLW. I am aware. Tap that screen, guys, over on TikTok. If you're enjoying the show, guys, if you want to get more people in here. Are we frozen again? What's going on here? There, I think that's better. Yeah, it is. Well, he's ahead of him in points, Billy D. But there's a lot more to hockey than points, right? There's all kinds of things. And again, I think that either he or either Hudson or Celebrini would both be very, very deserving winners of the Calder Trophy this year. I got What was their plus minus relative to their team's goal differential for that year, PLW? So where did Cale Makar's plus minus relate to his team's goal differential the year he won the Calder Trophy, compared to where Lane Hudson's plus minus relates to his team's? Gretzky Trades, Michael Matthew, Ted Bland, Blackie, what's up, guys? Thank you for joining us, guys. Tap the screen if you are enjoying it. Tap the screen. More likes means more people in the room. If you want to follow, you can do so up in the top left-hand corner. If you're over here on YouTube, thank you for joining us. You can subscribe down below, the subscribe button. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers. It'd be awesome if you could join us, help grow our community, help grow the Recliner Sports family. We're trying to build a place where you guys can come after the games and talk about the Montreal Canadiens, the NHL, your favorite teams, whatever you want to talk about, anything hockey related. We're trying to create a place for you guys to come and do that. Once Coach Frenchie goes off the air, you guys can all come over here. That would be awesome. So the more of you that subscribe, the better. And we're going to get to the subscribe. We're going to get to the scoreboard here, guys. If you're over on TikTok, guys, you can certainly ask questions. Feel free to fire away with your questions. But if you do want to see the graphics and you do want to see, all of that stuff, the scoreboard, the A team, and that other stuff, you do have to come over here, and you have to go there, right there. That's where you go. That's not what I asked, PLW. That's not what I asked. Why don't you tell me how Cale Makar's plus minus related to his team's goal differential? So what was the goal differential for the Colorado Avalanche the year that he won the trophy, the Calder Trophy, and what's the goal differential for the Canadiens? I'll tell you, the Canadiens' goal differential this year, I believe, is minus 26. So, guys, here is the A team. For those of you that were guessing my picks tonight, here they are. So tonight's A team, as chosen by me, the A team, of course, is our version of the Stars. Yes, Dominic Kubalik was the. So you get a hearty thumbs up over here, Karen B. Selaire. You get a thumbs up for getting Dominic Kubalik was the third place vote getter in the year that Cale Makar won the Calder Trophy. So tonight's A team, again, the A team is our version of the Three Stars. We pick four, named after the amazing, great 1980s television show, The A Team. Of course, Hannibal, Face, Murdoch, and B.A. Baracus. So tonight's A team is Lane Hudson, Nick Suzuki, Josh Anderson, and Jakob Dobesh. So those are my choices. Feel free to tell me I'm stupid, I got it all wrong, I missed a guy, I picked a guy that doesn't deserve there. Let me know what you guys think. Lane Hudson tonight I thought was incredible. Again, he was on the ice. Again, PLW thinks that plus minus is a really important stat, but again, Lane Hudson was the best player on the ice for the Canadiens tonight. Guess what? He was a -1 tonight. Does that mean he didn't play very well? Does that mean he had a bad game? Does that mean he, struggled? Or did it mean that he was on the ice an awful lot and happened to be on the ice for a goal against, despite playing a really, really good hockey game, right? So plus minus isn't really a stat that means a whole hell of a lot. I get that it does have some value, but in and of itself and on its own, without other stats to support it or to back it up, it's a pretty useless statistic. Yeah, I agree. Wesh. It doesn't. I mean, again, it tells you a little bit of something. But again, if you're a minus, who was the only defenseman on the Montreal Canadiens last year to not be a negative plus minus? Does anybody know? These are not in order. Wesh. The reason the goaltender typically is the last guy when I do the A team is because I don't like to put him on the A team until the game is over because I don't want to jinx anything. So I rarely will put the goaltender. I rarely, I wait until the game is over before I put the goaltender on the graphic because I don't want to jinx anything. Anderson disappeared after the first period. I didn't see that. I didn't see that tonight, Tony B. Is that the way you saw it? I didn't. I didn't see it that way. I thought he played well throughout the whole game. I thought he was, getting, some scoring chances even late in the game. He was out on the ice quite a bit. Not so much in the last 4 or 5 minutes, but certainly in the last 10 minutes, I thought, he was certainly out there getting some scoring chances. I thought he had a pretty solid game from top to bottom. But it's not. How could it possibly be PLW? How could it possibly demonstrate a tendency? Like plus minus is completely related to the players that you play with, the players that you play against. It's not about your individual abilities. Gallagher, Caulfield, Suzuki, and Newhook. Okay, yeah, I thought those guys had pretty good games. I'll agree with those 4 guys as well. Sebastian. Nick Suzuki, again, I thought, he's played really well since the break. Again, he had another fantastic performance tonight. Cole Caulfield, again, could have easily been on there as well. I thought the whole first line played really, really well and certainly did their job at the end of the game, right? That's what you want from your first line. You want to be able to have a first line that you can put out there down by a goal late in the game and they can, exert pressure on the other team. Not at will necessarily, but you know that if you put them out there in a pressure situation like that they're going to get scoring opportunities, and that's what they did tonight. Unfortunately, they weren't able to solve Dustin Wolf, but they certainly were able to get out there and do their job and get scoring opportunities. Josh Anderson, again, he still struggles to put the puck in the net, but he gets opportunities. He skates hard. He's adapted his game. He's physical. He uses his body. He's an incredible skater. Like he's really, really quick and he's smart. Gets in the right spots and gets scoring chances. But unfortunately, as is often the case with him, he just wasn't able to finish. Yes, PLW. He was. He was. Devils noticed him and signed. Well, that's not exactly what happened. PLW. You think that the Devils noticed his plus minus last year and signed him to a $20 million contract? Is that what happened? Was Jonathan Kovacevic the best defenseman on the Montreal Canadiens last year? I like Jonathan Kovacevic, and I said so. I mean, you can go back and look. I've got the receipts to prove that, and I was disappointed when he got traded, and I thought that he would play an important role on this team this year. But he did get traded. He did get traded to New Jersey, and and he's a good defenseman. But again, he was not the better a great defenseman on the Canadiens last year. He was a very good defenseman, but his plus minus was not a reflection of him, where he fits in the grand scheme of the Montreal Canadiens defensive depth chart. What's up, Dylan Cousins Believer? How are you? Dobesh to play Vancouver? I doubt it. I doubt that. I doubt that Dobesh will play in the next game. I think you'll probably see Montembeault for the next couple games. They played. When is the next game? Is the next game tomorrow night? If you're over on TikTok, guys, tap the screen, like, share, and follow. Help us get some more people here in the live. If you're enjoying the show, you can also follow right there. If you want to watch the show live on this, you can go over and join over there and come on over here, and you can see the graphics and so on and so forth. I think it's an overpay as well, Wesh. I like Kovacevic, but he's not worth $20 million. He's not worth $5 million. Is it 4 years times $5 million, or is it 5 years times $4 million? Either way, it's an overpay. But again, New Jersey has never been known to be, their management isn't really that, they're not the most competent group in the NHL, let's say. Dylan Cousins needs a sports psychologist. Well, yeah, I don't know. Maybe he does, RDP. Is that? I don't know that that's a. I don't know that that's a. I don't know that that's a something we should be making fun of somebody for or whatever. Thoughts on the Evans deal? Dylan Cousins says. I think it's a good deal for the Canadiens. I think it's. I think the dollar amount is very respectable. I think it's. I'm more than happy to have him on the team for another 4 years. I think he serves a number of important roles on the team. He's a great fourth line player. He's, arguably one of the best fourth line players in the NHL. He's also arguably one of the best penalty killers in the NHL. He'll also be a nice veteran presence in the dressing room. He'll be a good mentor for the younger players for years to come. And, at the end of the day, that fourth line is in good shape as long as Jake Evans is around. So I'm very happy with the deal. Players minus 29. When we're not talking. Well, see, why are we moving? Why are we moving on to Kirby Dach again? PLW. Why are we moving on to? You brought this up in reference to Lane Hutson. Nobody is saying that Kirby Dach is having a good year this year, but you brought up plus minus in relation to Lane Hutson, and now all of a sudden you've shifted over to Kirby Dach again because you can't stand Kirby Dach. And again, you're just proving to me that you're the guy that we talked about earlier. You're the guy who, picks a guy that you don't like, and then you find every reason to talk shit about him. So again, I'm not interested in a PLW. I get it. You don't like Kirby Dach, that's fine. You don't have to like him. But again, you literally, you can't stop talking about him. You hate him that much. You can't, like, where this whole conversation was about Lane Hutson and him being minus 15 compared to Cale Makar, and now you're back on Kirby Dach. So again, you can talk about Kirby Dach all you want, and you can, but again, you're proving time and time again that your views on Kirby Dach are not they're not rational, they're not reasonable, and they're not objective. So it's fine. I'd advocate Kovacevic. Yes, contract is very high, but he isn't expected goals against. Yeah, I agree with all that stuff. Why don't you move on, PLW? Why don't you try that? How about that? The show's been on for over an hour now, and you've been talking about Kirby Dach and how much you don't like him for about 45 minutes of it. So why don't we talk about something else? How about that? Kirby Dach isn't going to play for the Canadiens this year, so you can be happy about that, and you won't have to see him for the rest of the year. No, you cannot, Saucepan. Sorry. You can come on over here, and you can get in the comment section if you want. The last member, guys, of the A team tonight is Jakub Dobesh. Again, I thought he played quite well tonight. Unfortunately, not good enough to get the win, but he made a lot of really nice saves, particularly early on. He kept the team in the game. And, I thought he played really, really well. I thought he came back, Last game he played decently, but he'd had a couple of games where he struggled a little bit before that, and he certainly looked back in form tonight. So, I thought he had a good game. So there's your A team for tonight, guys. Lane Hutson, Nick Suzuki, Josh Anderson, and Jakub Dobesh. Dono asks, who do you think will fill the 2C spot going forward? I don't know. I don't know, Dono. I don't know who will. I mean, I think that it's Owen Beck's spot for now. I don't really see anybody. They're obviously the trade deadline is passed, so they're not going to be bringing anybody in from outside at this point to take that spot. Um, Maybe when they get back home, they try some other guys from down in Laval. They start bringing guys up and down. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, but PLW, I have no problem discussing with you. I have no problem. The problem is you keep saying the same things over and over again, and you keep making disingenuous arguments about the person. You keep making arguments that are not based in fact, which demonstrates to me that you're looking to prove a point that's not provable. So that's all I got to say. And again, you've been doing it for 45 minutes again. You're saying the same thing over and over and over again. And you made your point. So again, there's a lot of other things to talk about. There's a lot of other people here who would like to talk about other things, and maybe have me talk about other things as well. So give Dvorak 8x8. He'll be the perfect 2C. Good call, Nuka. I like it. I like it. You're the next Bill Masterton Award winner. No, it's like not the right award. What's the GM of the Year award? It's not the Luke. It's not the Luke Masterton. Jack. I forget what it's the Jack something award winner. You hope somebody helps what? Listen, PLW, I'm happy you're here, but you don't need to be here. I'm not. No one's forcing you, man. If you're not enjoying my monologue, if you're not enjoying what I'm saying, then you can certainly feel free to go somewhere else. Again, it's the same thing you do over in Coach Frenchie's, right? You want to try and dominate the conversation and talk about the things you want to talk about. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let other people talk as well. The Jim Gregory Award. I think that's right. Do I think that Gallagher should get a video tribute at the Bell Center when he retires? And how do you like my steak, medium rare or well cooked? The Jack Adams Award is for the Coach of the Year, right, Intertap? I think there's another award for the GM. The answer to your second question, Sebastian, is I like my steak cooked medium rare. But what I typically do when I go to a nice steakhouse is I tell the server to have the chef cook the steak the way he or she thinks it should be cooked, which typically is medium rare. As far as Gallagher getting a tribute at the Bell Center, yeah, I think he absolutely should. I think Brendan Gallagher has been a really good player for the Montreal Canadiens. He's been a guy who sacrificed his body for the Montreal Canadiens. He's been a leader on the team. He's done everything he's been asked to do. He's changed his game, to suit the organization's needs. I think he's been a model citizen and a model Montreal Canadian. I think he should get all kinds of recognition when he retires. So yeah, and the answer to your second question, of course, is medium rare. On a real note, I don't know what happened to Dvorak. I was a lifelong Coyotes fan, and I always really liked him. He was a great two-way center who played a really sound game. I'm not really 100% sure myself what happened to him, Luca. I understand he was a spectacular junior hockey player, played on a line with Mitch Marner, which probably didn't hurt. He had a pretty decent career in Arizona before coming to the Canadiens. Struggled for most of his time in Montreal. He's probably playing his best hockey as a Montreal Canadian right now, which may get him a contract. I think he's certainly going to have to take a pay cut if he stays in Montreal. But yeah, I couldn't tell you what happened to him either. He's been pretty solid for the Canadian in the role of being the guy they put out there when they need to win a faceoff. But the Jim Gregory Award, yeah, I think that is what it's called. Intertap. Brendan Gallagher paid his dues for the Canadiens fans and organization. Yeah, Brendan Gallagher's body at the age of 32 or 33 or whatever he is mangled. Right, he's mangled both of his hands. I believe he's broken both of his ankles, or at least one of his ankles. His body is in rough shape because of what he's done in pursuit of the Montreal Canadiens goal. So, yeah, I think that he's been a warrior for the Canadiens. Again, he's done everything he's been asked at his own peril. He's sacrificed a ton, and I think that every Montreal Canadiens fan should should give him a pat on the back for what he's done for the organization. I love Dobish, by the way. Between him and Fowler, there's a ton of promise in net. I have Monty, though. I hate Monty, though. I don't understand why Habs fans are so high on him. He's aggressively mediocre with even underlying stats. Yeah, well, again, I don't know that that's grounds to hate him, Luca. I'm going to agree with you that he's not, and probably never will be. Talking about Montembeault now, he's not, and probably never will be a top tier goaltender in the NHL. What I think is good about Montembeault is he makes saves when he needs to make saves. Right, he rarely falls apart when it matters. Like, he has bad games, he has stinker games, and whatever, and his normal stats and his underlying stats don't demonstrate him to be a top level goalie. And I guess if you want to say aggressively mediocre, again, I'm not sure exactly what that term means, but I don't disagree with that. But the thing with Montembeault that I find is he's a guy who comes up big when it matters, and that's really what you want from a good goaltender. And he's played for the most part on a team that has struggled mightily defensively, and has had average statistics. So again, I'm not sure that I would go as far as to say that he's worthy of hate. I think he's done his job. I think he's been good for the Montreal Canadiens. He's held down the fort for this team when they needed that. And even now, that the team is having a little bit more success and playing at a little bit of a higher level than they have, prior to this year. He's a guy who typically, when he's in the net, he makes the saves when they need to be made. And he, might not make all of the saves. And again, he might put up a stinker here and there, but it's rare that that they're up by a goal late in the game and he lets in a really shitty goal. And he typically keeps them in games and allows them the opportunity to win, even if his save percentage isn't up there with the league leaders and so on and so forth. So it's confusing. Kevin Adams, future Jim Gregory Award winner, has a nice ring to it. Yes, well, it would be confusing. RDP, I'm sure. Winnipeg versus Florida Stanley Cup. Yeah, I don't know that Winnipeg is ready for prime time just yet, Sebastian. But we'll see. We'll see. I don't see Winnipeg quite there yet. I think Winnipeg needs to take another run at it before they get to the promised land. I think that they need to prove that they can get out of the early rounds of the playoffs before they can start thinking about Stanley Cup finals. You throw me under the bus because I said Beck will play 20 to 30 games with the Habs. Again, you're being disingenuous. Again, PLW. You said that Beck would play 20 to 30 games with the Habs. That was before Kirby Dach got hurt. If Kirby Dach hadn't got hurt, he wouldn't play 20 to 30 games with the Habs. So, can we be honest? Can we at least, if you're going to argue with me, PLW, at least be honest about it. I didn't throw you under the bus. I disagreed with you when you said that Owen Beck would play 20 to 30 games with the Habs this year. And I disagreed with you because I know that it's the Montreal Canadiens' philosophy and it's their plan to keep as many of those guys down in Laval as they possibly can. And the reason that Owen Beck is playing in the NHL right now is because Kirby Dach got hurt and they don't really have any other options of guys to bring up and fill that position. So again, if you want to try and make me look stupid in front of everybody, at least be honest about it. Let's be truthful. They ought to have traded Montembeault. Okay, I don't know if I can agree with that. I'm not a Habs fan, being a BC boy, but there is definitely players they have that are endearing to me. I really like Harvey Pinard. I love Jack Eye. and always liked Armia, plus Hudson as a stud. Yeah, I agree with that. Jack Eye's really fun. I think Harvey Pinard, unfortunately, he obviously had his run and looked really, really good for that period of time when he was, scoring goals at a ridiculous rate. Jack Eye, I think, is, again, a really good story. A kid who's a late bloomer. He's really fun to watch. Armia is a good kid as well. He just has struggled a little bit to find his way, but yeah, I agree with all that stuff. He would be very good platoon tender with better defense, but I don't think he's got ceiling to be. Yeah, and again, I don't think that's probably going to be the case when the Canadiens, when this rebuild comes to its ultimate goal, right, Luca? I don't think you're looking at Samuel Montembeault being the number one goalie that they rely on to carry this team over the finish line if and when they get there. So I think he's been a good placeholder for this team. I think he's been solid. But I think you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, the plan is for some of the prospect goalies to be in those roles. Maybe he's a backup to somebody else down the road. But yeah, I don't disagree with that at all, Luca. I think you're bang on. Tough for Montreal fans on the goaltending, been so spoiled over the years. Yeah, I mean, Carey Price is obviously, spoiled Canadian fans a little bit. And, over the years, Ken Dryden and Patrick Waugh and, all the other guys that the Canadians have had over the years. But again, I think that Montembeault is, to me, a good goaltender is a guy who keeps you in games and allows you the opportunity to win games. And, Montembeault, for the most part, does that for the Canadians. It's very rare that you can look at a game and say that Samuel Montembeault was the reason why Montreal lost. Right? It's not like, again, it's not like, again, I don't want to shit on that. Like, it's not like James Reimer, and it's not like, the guys that, we've seen on other teams and other organizations where, you got a goalie who's just, you can't win with them in the nets. And, night in and night out, they're a weak point on the team. Samuel Montembeault hasn't been that guy. He typically gives them a chance to win. If Habs don't make it, I'll be rooting for Vancouver. Yeah, I don't know, man. Vancouver's going to be tough. Okay, Sebastian. My hope is for as many Canadian teams to make it as possible. I want a Canadian team to win. I'm naturally inclined to root for the Canucks being from Vancouver Island, but I'm a lifelong Coyotes fan and now a begrudging Utah fan. Yeah, I don't know if I'd be begrudging. Is it not a happy moment that the team has moved to Utah? Wouldn't that be something positive? Thank you for the likes, Dono. I appreciate that. Keep them coming. See if we can get some people in there, guys. Why don't you guys join Dono? And if you have questions, feel free to fire away. I remember the horrors of Andrei Pavlich and all those solid Jets teams. That dude was the antithesis of clutch. He couldn't be trusted at all in important moments. Yeah. Again, I think there's a lot of different skills that come with being a goalie, and one of them is making the saves at the right time, and I think that is a skill that Sam Montembeault does have. But no, I appreciate your comments, Luca. If you're not subscribed yet, please subscribe, and you're welcome anytime. This is great commentary, and you don't have to be a Canadiens fan to be here, so you're more than welcome, and I appreciate the. I thought you were coming in to troll a little bit when you came in with the Dvorak 8x8 contract comment, but now I see that we shouldn't judge people based on their initial impressions. I think it's going to be interesting in the West this year. I really think that Colorado is going to be tough to beat. I mean, assuming that Blackwood, Blackwood. I always get Blackwood and Wedgwood. Blackwood's the number one, Wedgwood's the backup. Assuming Blackwood can keep up what he's doing in goal for Colorado, I think they've certainly done a lot to improve themselves at the deadline. They've got a ton of playoff experience. They've got the high end guys. I think they've more than made up for losing Rantanen. And I think obviously their defense. their defensive depth might be a little, could be a little bit better. Um, but there's a couple of guys there who could step up. I'm drawing a blank on Manson. Is a guy who hasn't really played up to his abilities this year, and if he can come around a little bit, I think that makes a difference for them. So I like Colorado in the West right now. Um, obviously Winnipeg is on paper probably the best team right now, but you know, experience means a lot in the playoffs, as we've seen in the past. I think what makes it difficult for me with Utah is I had so much love for Arizona, and they are finally good. Like they have so much promise, and it hurts knowing this was supposed to be Arizona's team. Yeah, I can see that, Luca. But again, I think that with the ownership in Arizona, they could have easily effed it up, right? I don't think that that's gonna. I don't think that the owner in Utah is very likely to mess things up. We've seen teams that are finally good, to use your terminology, and then because ownership really doesn't know what they're doing or gets too involved, then they can kind of screw up. Um, a team that is fine. Carolina might be a good example of that, right? Finally good, but now you know ownership is kind of dicking around with a little bit. So it's all good, Luca. We're here every time the Canadians play. We go live after the games, and so if you want a place to talk hockey, this is a place where you can count on us being here. We're both here and on TikTok. Over here, my TikTok screen is over here, and my YouTube screen is over here. So, what do I think about trading for Mason McTavish from Anaheim? I don't see that Mason McTavish will necessarily be available. I can't imagine that Anaheim would want to move on from him. I don't. Is there a lot of talk about them moving on from him? I don't know. Like I don't see why they would. He seems to be playing good hockey for them. He's and then I guess the second question I would have is how much is it going to cost? How much does it cost to get Mason McTavish out of Anaheim? Would I like to have him on the Montreal Canadiens? Yeah. Mason McTavish is a good player. He's a good young player, and he'd be, beneficial to the Canadiens. But again, I don't feel like I would give up. There aren't very many. I'm a big proponent of sticking with the guys that we already have. So like if you're talking about trading, you know, uh, you know, Reinbacher or Mayu or Michael Hage or guys like that, even Kapanen and I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in trading guys that we already have, who I'm invested in, who still haven't had their opportunity to prove their worth at the NHL level. I'm not interested in going out and getting somebody from another team. If I wanted to cheer for Mason McTavish, I'd become an Anaheim Ducks fan. Now I know that the Canadiens at some point are going to have to, make some moves and bring guys in, whether it's through trade or through free agency. They're going to have to, put some finishing touches on their team, before they, can cross the finish line. They don't have to, but it's more than likely that they're going to have to. I get that, and that they're not going to be able to just draft and develop their way into a Stanley Cup. That's not very likely. I mean, it's possible, I suppose, but it's not very likely. But again, I don't know that that's necessarily what we need to be doing at this stage of the rebuild. We're not quite three years into the rebuild yet, so um, you talk about trading for McTavish. I'd much rather wait and see what Ivan Demidov looks like. I'd much rather wait and see what Michael Hage looks like. I'd much rather wait and see what Owen Beck looks like. I'd much rather wait and see what Joshua Roy looks like. I'd much rather wait and see what whoever they draft in this year's draft looks like. So, yeah. But again, if they are going to make a trade, McTavish fits the profile, right? He's still young. Um, guy, he's a guy who fits into the profile of what the Canadiens are trying to do. St. Louis will get the last wild card. Okay, interesting take, Entertap. Interesting take. We suffered as Yotes fans for so long, and know they have an incredible GM and incredible players: Cooley, Gunther, Keller, Sergachev, Amelka. It's hard seeing them succeed on a different team. Well, again, are they a different team? I mean, still the same GM, still the same players. I mean, I don't know. I just maybe I'm reading it wrong, and I'm not a Coyotes fan, so I can't really say. To me, if I was a Coyotes fan, I think it would be, again, I mean, unless I'm a Coyotes fan who lives in Phoenix or in Arizona somewhere, I think it would almost be a positive thing that they finally got away from that ownership and playing, all of the sort of craziness that went on with that organization. So. What about Vancouver Entertap? Yeah, I don't know about Vancouver, man. I think Vancouver's in trouble. Happy for the guys to be in a better market, though, and I'll always love them. Just hard to see success when we suffered so many bad years. Yeah. If I ever see Marulo, I'll throw hands. Top 5 worst owners in the history of sports. Yeah, there we go. I think we're on the same page as far as that goes. I'm picking Dallas in the West. I picked Dallas last year. But I think I'm going with Colorado this year. Dallas is another team that I think still isn't quite ready for prime time yet. I think they've got some good players. They're really good on paper. They were really good on paper last year, but we'll see. Thank you, Luca. I appreciate the subscription. I appreciate it so much. My favorite Hab of all time. I have 2. You love Lars Eller. Okay, that is an interesting one. I have one obvious. I have 2. So one's an obvious pick, and one is kind of obscure. So my obvious pick is Guy Lafleur. He was the best when I was growing up. When I was a kid, my grandfather is the one who made me a Montreal Canadiens fan, and he was a huge Guy Lafleur fan. When I was 11 years old, we moved to a town called Baie-D'Urfé, which is a suburb of Montreal, and Guy Lafleur lived like 3 streets, well, more than 3 streets over from us, but he also lived in Baie-D'Urfé. So I would see Guy Lafleur around all the time. I would see him at the rink with his kids. His kids were, I think his youngest kid was around my age, I want to say. And so I would see them around the rink and whatever. So I was, even before that, I was a huge Guy Lafleur fan. And then, moving into the same town as Guy Lafleur had a huge impact on me. The obscure one is Mike McPhee. And the reason for Mike McPhee is that I grew up in Montreal, or in the West Island of Montreal, and I was from Nova Scotia. I'm born in Nova Scotia. My family's all from Nova Scotia. Both my parents were born and raised in Nova Scotia, and so I was a Nova Scotian, and I love Nova Scotia, and I used to come home every summer, and now I live in Nova Scotia years and years later. So for me, having a Montreal Canadian who was from Nova Scotia, it was only natural that he would be my favorite player. So Guy Lafleur and Mike McPhee are my 2 favorite players. Mayu looked bad on Laval tonight. I didn't. I saw some of the game. He looked okay. The part I watched, I didn't watch the entire game. Wesh. I don't know why that's LOL, but I don't find it funny when the Canadiens players play badly. I don't LOL it, but. Agree that it's doubtful that Anaheim is willing to trade McTavish, key player for the Ducks. Yeah, again, I don't know. Again, there's, it's not to say that a key player can't be traded. I just haven't heard. I would find it really, really strange that they would be looking to move both Trevor Zegras and Mason McTavish. W. I don't know what you mean by that. Rodney, I don't know what you mean by W. Anaheim already has Strome and Carlson, so if you overpay, you can maybe get McTavish. Okay, well, I'm not interested in overpaying for him, Entertap, I guess. My favorite 2 when he was with us, Lars Eller. That light on the ceiling behind you is way too bright, hurts the eyes, turn it off. No can do, man. That's the only light I have in here, so I'm not in my usual spot. I'm at my in-laws in Cape Breton. I suppose I could do that for you if you want. I'm at my in-laws in Cape Breton, so this is the only place I have. Everyone else is asleep, so I'm trying to be in a nice place where I don't wake the whole crew up. They've got lots of picks, yeah, but those picks are valuable too, right? How many picks are you willing to give up for Mason McTavish? Okay, I didn't see it, James. I think Mayu is working on his defensive game down in Laval right now. I think it's something that's a work in progress. I do find Mayu sometimes to be a little too nonchalant, a little too lackadaisical defensively, um, which would be fine if he, I mean, I think some people would say that that Lane Hudson looks a little bit, lackadaisical or not lackadaisical, but nonchalant on defense. But that's because he's just so good and quick at it. Mayu isn't, and Mayu has to kind of bear down a little bit on the defensive side of the game in order for him to be effective. Like he needs to be more like an Arbor Jackeye than he's trying to play like Lane Hudson when he needs to play more like Arbor Jackeye, and I think that's something that hopefully he'll eventually figure out. And I think he's obviously getting better at that, but it's still a work in progress. McTavish is a keeper. If Anaheim gets rid of him, it's a huge mistake. I don't disagree, PLW. I'd be, again, that's why I'm surprised that they would consider getting rid of him. McTavish is, not only is he a good, he's a good offensive producer, he's a good two-way player. He appears to have leadership, leadership abilities, for the future. So, I don't think he's slow, Wesh. He might not be. I think he's fast. He might not be super quick. I don't think he's as quick on his feet as, as a Lane Hudson or whatever. But I don't know that I would say that he's slow. Once he gets going, he's a pretty good skater. He's a powerful skater. Laval Rockets won today. They did. They won today and yesterday against the Rochester Americans. Colorado BB. Don't know what that means. Wesh. He did, but Vincent pegged it perfectly. It was a bad mistake, and nothing needs to be said to him. He knows, but did not hang his head or make another one part of maturity. Yeah, and that's again. This is a philosophy that the Canadiens have. It's a Marty St. Louis philosophy, and I think it's one that Pascal Vincent is kind of adopting as well a little bit. They don't want these players out there playing scared, right? He doesn't want them out there, um, you know, playing on eggshells, worried that they're going to make a mistake and that they're going to get benched and that they're not going to play anymore. Sometimes when a player makes a mistake, you got to throw him back over the boards and tell him to go out there and try again. And I think that is what's the saying, right? It's not about how many mistakes you make; it's about how you respond to them or how you react or how you come back from them. It's about getting back on. So again, I think the fact that players are able to come back and do that is certainly a positive. So the draft is only one way to build your team. At some point, you need to extend out and trade for either a bit of experience or fill in a spot in need. If you wait for a prospect, it might never come. Well, I don't disagree with that, Ertap, and I think it's kind of what I said. Is that there will come a time, almost certainly, where they'll have to do that. I don't know that time is right now. Um, I agree with you that the draft is only one way to build your team, but in a rebuild, it is the predominant way to build your team, right? When you commit to a rebuild, one of the things you commit to is to certainly to lean on rebuilding from within, to focus on the draft, to focus on development, to use that as your default, right? You're going to build through the draft. You're going to build by developing your own players, and anytime you bring players in from the outside, whether it's a trade or a free agency, that's going to be the exception, not the rule. And there's obviously other aspects to a rebuild, and again. I don't, they added Alexandre Carrier, they added Patrick Laine, they added Kirby Doc, they added um, Alex Newhook. These are all trades that they made, but again, these are not going out to bring in, big name players, or to, guys who are, you're desperately need to fill those spots. And so the idea of trading your prospects who have yet been given the opportunity to prove themselves at an early stage of a rebuild where the Canadiens still are, to me is not conducive to rebuilding. So again, I agree with you. The draft isn't the only way to rebuild your team. I agree with you that at some point you are going to have to bring in experience. I don't actually. I don't agree with that. I don't think you need to bring in experience. I think sometimes you may have to fill a spot. I agree with that. The Canadiens have experience. Like they're like who like what are we? Where do the Canadiens have a lack of experience? Right. Again, I think you do need experience on a rebuilding hockey team, but I think that can easily be um, you know, done from within as well, right? The Canadiens have experience from guys like Josh Anderson and Brendan Gallagher and, David Savard and Mike Matt, the guys who were already on the team. You don't have to go out, like look at Chicago. Chicago is, if you're not paying attention, if you're not aware, Chicago is mangling their rebuild because they're out signing guys who are 35 years old and they're trying to bring veterans into, no, let your young guys play. Like that's what the Canadiens did, right? They threw young guys into the fire. Like there's all kinds of guys in the first couple of years of the rebuild that had no business being in the NHL, but because they were rebuilding, the Canadiens could do that. Arbor Jacki, as an 18-year-old, Arbor Jacki, do you think on any other team in the NHL, Arbor Jacki would have been able to play in the NHL? No. But, he was able to because it was the Montreal Canadiens. Uri Slavkovsky probably wouldn't have, played that first year in the NHL if it wasn't, if the Canadiens weren't in a rebuild. If the Canadiens were worried about winning and making the playoffs, or, whatever the Chicago Blackhawks are worried about, then he wouldn't have gotten that opportunity there. So there's, sometimes the rebuild again, it doesn't hurt that you finish in the bottom of the standings because guess what, you get another really good draft pick the next year. So again, I agree with you. I think you and I, Intertep, don't necessarily see eye to eye on this one, and I think realistically I don't think we're that far apart. It's just that I don't know that it's a move you make at this stage, to go and bring in a guy like Mason McTavish at the expense of one, two, three, of your own prospects. I guess James still needs to practice acceleration and speed. You're talking about Mayu. I would like to see the Habs add a veteran 2C. Yeah, see my previous answer, James. See my previous answer to Entertap. I don't think they do. Sorry, you say you would like to see them. That's fine. I don't think they need to. I mean, maybe they do bring a guy in. I don't know that he has to be a veteran. For me, I would prefer that it be a younger guy. Maybe it's somebody who has 3 or 4 years experience, but I don't want them to bring in a 30-year-old to play in that role. I don't think they need veteran experience on the team, quite frankly. So, you like Guy Lafleur and Jaromir Jagr. McPhee was great. I will say this about Mike McPhee. How sometimes they tell you never to meet your heroes. The reason being is that sometimes your heroes don't live up to what you expected them to be. And again, I'm not suggesting for a minute that Mike McPhee wasn't awesome. He was a great hockey player and he was fun to watch. But he might be the most boring human being on the face of the earth. And if Mike McPhee, for whatever reason, happens to watch this someday, I apologize. But I did have the chance to meet Mike McPhee one time. My father was being nominated to, I can't remember what, I don't think it was the Nova Scotia Sports Hall of Fame. I think it was, anyways, whatever it was. And Mike McPhee was the speaker. And I got to go up and meet him. And I went up and I was like 25 or whatever years old. And I was excited to meet him. And I went up and I thought this is going to be awesome and blah, blah, blah. And I told him how I grew up in Montreal, but I was from Nova Scotia. And how, it was awesome, to finally get to meet him. And I'd met him a couple times when I was a kid and blah, blah, blah. And I had like his autograph like 25, 30 times and blah, blah, blah. And he like didn't even look up. Oh, that's nice. And then he just like stared off into space. Anyways, it was not great hockey player. I loved watching him. I was a huge fan, but not one of the greatest conversationalists you'll ever meet. I can appreciate the connection to Lafleur. He was a classy guy too, and I think that's something huge to look at. My favorite growing up was Shane Doan. He was a hell of a human. Yeah, I think those guys probably, obviously I think they probably lived a little bit of a different life off the ice between Shane Doan and Guy Lafleur, but yeah, I think those are both two guys that brought a lot of class to their respective organizations. Why was Reinbacher not playing today? Reinbacher, it's been part of the plan. His return to play after the knee injury is that he won't play in back-to-back games. Um, yeah, so he's not. They're not play. So if the Laval Rocket are playing back-to-back games, Reinbacher, presumably, I think up to now it's always been the second game he doesn't play, but I guess it could be the other way around. But for now, they're not going to play him in back-to-back nights. Koivu was my favorite. Heart as big as the sky. Yeah, Koivu was another great one, right? The night that he came back from cancer and got the standing ovation was obviously, is a huge memory for me as a Montreal Canadiens fan. One bright side to Arizona last year was seeing Josh Doan debut wearing the Coyotes jersey and score 2 goals in his first game. Yeah, absolutely. That was a pretty incredible moment. Yeah, how's he doing this year? I haven't really seen much from him this year. Reinbacher came back, Luca, about 3 weeks ago. I think he's played 5 or 6, 7 games for Laval. PLW favorite was Lafleur. Richer, yes. If you score goals at with your finger in your nose, I like you. Okay, I don't know what that means, but yeah, Stéphane Richer was probably as exciting a player as there was, when I was a kid. Like, back-to-back 50-goal seasons. I think it was back-to-back. Um, Unbelievable shot, right? Like, you just get the puck anywhere inside the blue line and it could go in the net. So Jagger, Lafleur, Koivu, and Gallagher. Okay. Mayu played a tough game today, mishandled the puck at the offensive blue line, leading to a breakaway and a goal against, but he was physical presence in his game. He played solid overall. Good to know. Thank you, James. I appreciate the scouting report. We need to see what Reinbacher can bring to the Habs hopefully next year. Yeah, I don't think you'll see him with the Canadiens this year. I think he'll go to camp just like he did this year. He'll go to camp next year, and he'll have a chance to make the team. Should be interesting. I think again, it's going to be interesting next year because you're going to see, you know, um, you're going to see Reinbacher, you're going to see Engstrom, you're going to see Mayu. All these guys are going to show up to camp looking for a job, and there's only so many spots on the team, right? There's only room for 6 or 7 defensemen on the team. It's been some time since he left, but happened. It's been some time since he's left, but happened between the Habs and Max Pacioretty. I thought he was a player who'd retire as a Hab. I'm not sure what happened there, Luca. I'm not sure that there was anything sort of specific that went on with Pacioretty. Um, he was a bit of a whipping boy for some people. He obviously had a great start, and I think he kind of fell off a little bit towards the end. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the story is there. Reinbacher sat out. This game is part of the recovery plan. Yes, that's yeah. Laine was an extremely good pickup. Yeah, he's been up and down a little bit, Luca. I think he's still struggling a little bit, and I think confidence is a big issue with Patrick Laine, despite the fact that he's got all the talent in the world. Mentally, sometimes he struggles with confidence, and you can see it. You can see it on the ice, and going into the Four Nations break, he was, his confidence was certainly at a low point. He wasn't doing very well. He had been moved down the lineup. He did come back from the Four Nations face-off and play better. He has, put up some more points of late, and he's just playing better hockey since the Four Nations face-off. And he's looked okay. I thought he's looked better. Again, he's another whipping boy for a lot of people, particularly the French-speaking media in Montreal, which is unfortunate and unfair, especially when you consider the overlay of mental health that's going on here, and some of the things that were said about him when he was struggling before the Four Nations break were actually pretty brutal by some of the francophone media and some former NHL players, some former Montreal Canadiens, who said some pretty miserable things about him, which I thought was unfair and unjustified. And but again, that's how things go sometimes in Montreal. But I've liked Laine. I mean, as long as you understand what you're getting from him, Obviously, he struggles, and I think the team understands what he's dealing with, and so when he does struggle, they take a bit. Speaking of the devil, RDS just joined me on the TikTok live. Probably not watching anymore, but you guys are largely responsible for some of the horrible things that were said about Patrick Laine prior to the Four Nations break, and you should be ashamed of yourselves for it. Yeah, I think that he serves a role on the team. Obviously, he's very productive on the power play. Um, very productive on the power play. He's struggled a little bit on 5-on-5, but he's done better with that. And yeah, I think he deserves a spot on the team. And I think he's also struggled. He hasn't had the best line mates, or his line mates haven't really played the best hockey around him. So he's you know if he's in the right situation, I think Patrick Laine could be pretty impressive. Billy D says Patches was in a tough spot. I don't think he should have been named captain. Then they wanted to strip him of it. Good news is we got Suzuki from the trade. Yes. Jack-Eye will be third line pairing on a lot of NHL teams. Trust me, Jack-Eye is a third pairing defenseman on any team in the NHL. Period. I would be surprised if Arbor Jack-Eye is not a part of the Montreal Canadiens for a long time to come. People don't want to rush players, but there's also becoming a huge issue of over-seasoning. I experience it with Utah, Victor Soderstrom. He had so much talent and never got much ice time. Yeah, I mean, the thing in Montreal is that, they were, Marty St. Louis was very big on, allowing guys to learn trial by error, right? Like I said earlier, you could go out there and make a mistake, and whereas a guy like John Tortorella would staple you to the bench for the rest of the game. His philosophy, certainly through the first 2 years of the rebuild, was just to put the guy back out there so that he could learn a lesson, and they could see, how does this guy respond to adversity and to failure, and that was the approach. Now that they're getting a little further along in the rebuild, it's changing a little bit. They're now, a little bit more, winning is obviously a little bit more of an issue. And so, there's, a little bit of a higher standard now, especially with some of the guys who've been around for a bit. But yeah, I think, certainly in a rebuild, it affords you the opportunity to be more patient with some of the younger guys in that way. They also did it with Dylan Strome. They refused to play him and let him get his feet wet, and then they had to deal him with another team. Yeah, I didn't think Reinbacher was tough. Some people I know played him in Europe and said they never cross-checked that hard in their life. Yeah, I think that Reinbacher, I don't think he's mean. I think the mean streak is maybe something he'll need to work on, but I don't think I would want to get on the wrong side of him. I like ya, Mike. Okay, RDP, I don't know what you mean by that. Who are we talking about? Once Strome was dealt to Chicago, they let him play and he broke out. Only plus side is that they got Nick Schmaltz, who's a solid player. Yeah. Zaka is 27, would be a good fit for 3 years. Want to give young players an opportunity when ready. Can't have too young a team and develop. Need stability to insulate young players. Again, this idea that the Canadiens don't have veterans and don't have leadership on their team, I don't get that argument. The idea that they can't sort of abandon all veterans in favor of young players, I don't get that. Even if they had let Armia and Dvorak and Savard go, they still have Matheson and Savard, and Suzuki isn't, Suzuki's not a rookie kid anymore. Caulfield's not a rookie kid anymore. They still have Anderson, they still have Gallagher, they still have plenty of leadership on the team. So again, I'm not, Zaka, is Zaka a bad choice? No, I don't have a problem with Zaka, and if you could get him for a decent price as a a bridge to Michael Hage or whatever is coming down the pike, I don't have a problem with that. But again, I'm not sure that the Canadiens lack veteran leadership or guys who can quote unquote insulate younger players. All good, Luca. I appreciate the conversation. If you aren't competitive, you're not much value in letting your kids. Yeah, again, and again, the rebuild is a lot of a very different situation than if you've got a team that's, intending to be competitive for a Stanley Cup. PLW, he could really play when he wants. Great McPhee story. Yeah, I think I think he's an accountant by trade, or yeah, he's not he's just a quiet guy, Billy D. I think he's a pretty private, quiet guy, but again, it was just kind of disappointing to finally meet somebody on an adult level and be. Anyways, it is what it is. Donor is good. He's playing middle six role, developing nicely. I think he will end up being really solid, high end third liner or high. Okay, love it. Carbonneau. I'd compare him to someone like a poor man's Lehkonen. Okay, because he came on fire offensively, and now he just doesn't seem to be doing that. Yeah, Laine definitely has some work to do in the mental area. I feel for him because he has a ton of skill like him. He's seen some of the podcasts. He's a really good dude, down to earth. Yeah, again, and he's working on those things, right? He's working on his mental health, right? He's very open about it. He's very open about the fact that he's gotten help and that he's working, towards all these things. So, I think that's important as well. John Leclerc was fun to watch as well. Rodney, Habs win percentage before Laine came was 380. Since he came, the win percentage is 620. Good point. Like it. I don't think Laine is 100% fit. Tough to come back from injury after being off for a year. Seems to step behind. I hope he has a strong finish to the year. Yeah, I don't disagree with that, James. I think that cardio fitness wise, I think he might still be. Hey, Jeff Pearlman, please, are you still here? I would love to talk to Jeff Pearlman. Do you guys don't follow Jeff Pearlman on your social media? He's awesome. He's a writer who's written books about Bo Jackson, the LA Lakers. He's written all kinds of different books about the New York Mets, the '86 Mets. Great author, and he does really, really good stuff on TikTok. And I believe he's also on. I think he's on Blue Sky as well. So Marty is a great dude and a great coach. He understands that coaching requires nuance and context, and he really understands the difficulties that players face as a former player. Yeah, I mean, he's very progressive as a coach, Luca, as well. I think he coaches in a different way. Um, did they lose Rodney? They got knocked out. Michael Hage. So Michigan is out. He got an assist. He didn't look. I didn't watch the game, but his numbers didn't look very good. Um, his numbers didn't look very good last night. He was a -2, I believe. So they're knocked out. Was it a best of three? Um, yeah, I don't expect that Michael Hage will come out of Michigan this year. I think he'll probably spend another year there, at least, and we'll go from there. Media people often have a lot of underneath stories. They keep it for themselves, but give it a twist to pass the message. Sorry, I'm not sure what that's in relation to. I'm not sure what that's in relation to. It was hard to see when he came out about his mental health. There was a large subset of people who were shitting on him and calling him weak or soft. There needs to be more space for players to talk. Yeah, I agree, Luca. And again, it's why it's so disappointing to see the approach of some of the media members in the city who, when he was playing well, right? When he first came to the Canadiens and he got hurt and, he came out on opening night and with his crutches and the crowd gave him a standing ovation and everybody loved him and he was the greatest thing in the world. And then he finally, he came back earlier than everybody expected and he scored like, 6 power play goals in his first 6 games and everyone thought he was the greatest thing in the world. And, the French media loved him and it was Patrick Laine this and Patrick Laine that and blah, blah, blah. And then, then he struggled for 5 or 6 games and all of a sudden guys were calling him lazy and that he's a lazy hockey player and he's always been a lazy hockey player and he's this and he's that and he's the other thing and confusing laziness for mental health and suggesting that he was a guy who didn't put in effort on the ice and to use your terminology was shitting on him and calling him weak and soft and all these other things and I'm trying to think of the guy's name, former Montreal Canadien first round draft pick who did absolutely nothing in his career. But for whatever reason, they put him on the air on RDS, and anyways, calling him a lazy bum and whatever. It's just. I mean, the Montreal, especially the francophone media in Montreal, can be really, really unfair, and brutal. And it's just everyone wants to talk about Bell Let's Talk Day and all that other stuff, but when it comes down to reality, there's a lot of people out there that just aren't fair when it comes to mental health and treat people really, really, really badly. Reinbacher was very physical in a playoff-like game yesterday. Post-game said, "I'm a big body. I have to bring this to my game. When challenged, I have to respond, not a soft player." Yeah, and he did. And he went after one guy. Who did he go after? It was I can't think of who it was, but he did go after one guy who challenged him in front of the net. Line is just not the type of players that will please TV analysts who are most grinders in need of money to keep on going. Yeah, but again, I think that you have a responsibility when you are a broadcaster. This is my little fake microphone, but when you have a real microphone, I think you have a responsibility, um, a social responsibility you know, to be a good person. I get that you're doing your job and you're doing certain things, but I think you have a certain responsibility to be um, rational, objective, and reasonable, especially if you're going to criticize another person's, uh, you know, effort level, their will, their integrity in a way. I think that's a responsibility that I think not enough journalists take seriously anymore, especially in the sports world. I think there's a great lack of that, and there's especially a great lack of that when it comes to the French speaking media in Montreal. How's Michar's development? Haven't heard much about him in a while. He's up and down, Luca. He's been up and down. He's injured at the moment. He's a guy that I view as being probably not in the long term plans for the Canadiens. I mean, I think he's a guy who, if he is going to play in Montreal, probably needs to be a top six player. He doesn't really have the physical attributes or the skill set to be a bottom six player. Like, he doesn't have the defensive style of game. He doesn't have the size to play in that role. And I don't know that there's room for a guy like Michard to be on the top six in Montreal. I think those spots are going to be really, really competitive, and I don't know that he's going to get there. So I think, again, he's played good at times in Laval, but right now I think I don't see him being in the plans for the Canadiens long term. Many coaches, analysts are grinders and NHL bubble people who have adversity versus. Yeah, fair enough. PLW, gotcha. Good night, Wesh. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Bashar had a great start to the year, and then he got injured. Great line with Beck and Davidson. Came back and struggled a bit, and then got hurt again. Close to returning. See a likeness to Thomas Tatar. There you go. James Sneddon knows way more about what's going on in Laval than I do. So, what, analyst? I love JT Brown. Super smart guy and an advocate for the sport and the players. Yeah. I don't know much about JT Brown. I follow his wife on TikTok, and she's interesting. She's interesting. Bo Jackson should be in the MLB Hall of Fame. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I didn't play very long, but incredible athlete. Anyways, guys, I think that's going to be it for tonight. We're right on 2 hours here now. It's 1 o'clock in the morning here in Nova Scotia. I think I'm going to end the show there. It's been a great one, guys. We've got 15 thumbs up. Maybe we can add a couple more. I don't know if any of you who are currently watching haven't yet hit the thumbs up button. If you haven't subscribed yet, you can do so down below. If you're watching the show on a replay, certainly subscribe. That would be awesome as well. Like I said, we're trying to get to 500 subscribers, and it would be awesome if you could help us do that. And like I said, the same applies if you're watching in a replay. I know not everybody can stay up late and watch the show after the games, but that's awesome. We do appreciate everybody for coming. We have 275 comments here, which is probably about as much as we've ever had. The 16 thumbs up isn't quite at the top of where we've ever been, but it's been awesome. Luca, new to the show. It's been great chatting with you, Luca. I really great insights. Lexi is awesome. I really like her. I'm considering picking up her new book. Okay, there you go. So you know her as well. Yeah, no, she's really fun to follow on TikTok. Is Montreal's goalie prospects that Boston University? I think they're in the playoffs right now. Yes, that's Jacob Fowler. A shutout, another shutout tonight. for Jacob Feller. I think they won 6-0 in their first game of the playoffs. So, yeah, great chatting with you, Luca. Anybody else, all you guys who came tonight, I do appreciate your input. If you're over on TikTok, I don't see there's not very many people over there anymore, but if you were over here earlier, that's awesome. But again, I can't stress enough, if you're not subscribed yet and you enjoy the content, guys, the TikTok statistics, sorry, the YouTube statistics tell me that only 35% of the people who watch the show are actually subscribed. So if we can build that number up, that would be great. Help us grow our community, help us grow a place where we can all come and talk about hockey without having to deal with some of the BS that comes with being on the internet, some of the trolling and all that other stuff. Let's try and build a place where we can come have civil and intelligent conversations about hockey. So again, all that to say, guys, the Montreal Canadiens fall 1-0 to the Calgary Flames. A decent game by the Canadiens. Dustin Wolf certainly was a big factor for the Calgary Flames tonight, but the Canadiens certainly did not play badly. They didn't get a result that they probably deserved, but it is what it is, and hopefully they'll learn a lesson from it, and they'll come back stronger, and it'll be interesting to see where things go from here. So I hope you enjoyed the show. I certainly did. It's been a fun time talking with all of you on TikTok over here and on YouTube over here. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you, Rodney. Thank you, Luca. Yeah, it was awesome, guys. I appreciate all of you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a good one. Peace out.
To Hoffman, Monahan parked in front, docks to Caulfield, fires, scores!
You are about to enter Habs After Dark with Recliner Sports.